So I would say that I may not be the biggest horror aficionado in the world, but I like a good scary movie every once in a while, much as the next guy. One thing I don't like about horror movies though, titles. Not a big fan of them most of the time. Because with a title like this, it's like, gee, are there gonna be dead things in the movie? It's like, no, it's a metaphor. Of course they are. Just come on, cue the music. What's up, everybody? How's it going? How you doing? Welcome back. So today we're talking about a Norwegian film from Netflix called Cadaver. Although in the US, Netflix, in their infinite wisdom, decided to call the movie Cadaver with a C instead of the original title that started with a K, because I guess that was too confusing, right? Yeah, I don't know if you could tell, not really a big fan of the title. Personally, if it were up to me, I would have called this film like Mask of Gold or something similar to that, because it's not so in your face, this is a horror movie, and also it's a little mystery, like, ooh, Mask of Gold, what is it? Is that a metaphor? Is that real? Like, what is that? But the reality is, I probably wouldn't be that good of a filmmaker outside of having a couple little cool ideas like that, so hey, you work with what you got, you know? But anyway, the overall plot of this movie is it follows a family of three, a mother, a father, and a young daughter. And as far as I remember, the film doesn't give you a specific time or area where the film takes place, but very early on, it's evident that this takes place in a very post-apocalyptic and/or war-torn area. And in this post-apocalyptic era, all of a sudden, this family of three gets invited to this hotel nearby, and in that hotel, they're gonna put on a show, and they're gonna get a free meal. And since food is scarce, the family hops right on it. They go to this hotel, it's kind of fancy, they get wined and dined, but then the guy running the show gives everybody these golden masks and says, hey, put these on and then walk throughout this gigantic hotel and there's going to be a bunch of stuff going on in all the rooms. And the guy running the show says specifically to put on all their golden masks so that all the actors are aware that they're an audience member and they're not part of the show. So then it turns into this kind of interactive haunted hotel. And of course, there's a bunch of weird things that start happening and people go missing and a bunch of horror movie stuff happens. And right off the bat, I'll have to say, this movie is pretty good for the most part. And mainly the biggest complaint I have about the movie is just your very, very stereotypical horror movie tropes of people doing dumb things that are very obviously not what you're supposed to do. You guys know what I'm talking about. Like, the scene in a horror movie where some dumb white girl hears a noise outside and she's like, oh, hey, I need to go investigate this really quick. And then meanwhile, literally everybody on the planet is seeing that and is just like, why would you do that? And there are several very notable moments of that happening in this film. But honestly, besides that, it's a pretty solidly crafted flick. Now, there is an English dubbed version of the film, but I personally like to watch films in their original language with subtitles, unless it's an animated film, because then the mouths don't look all weird. But at any rate, in this movie, I don't speak the language, so I don't know 100% if the acting was good, but as far as the emotions that were elicited, I felt everything that the actors were trying to convey, so I thought that was solid. And also, the visual aesthetic of the movie was actually really well done, and that allowed for a lot of creepy moments in this, like, goofy-looking hotel. And this movie did a pretty good job with character motivations, albeit they didn't focus on too many characters in that aspect. Like, for example, the dad, they didn't really go like too much into his backstory, but they didn't really need to, so I don't really put that as a negative, just kind of a, maybe they could have done more with it, but I don't know, I'm not docking at any points. But they did a good job with the mom and the guy running the show and a couple other little things about other characters. I thought that was good. And with some of the horror tropes, there's actually a few strokes of genius that I thought were really good. I won't say exactly what happens, but there's a particular moment later in the movie that is very, very sudden, and then there's a quick sequence of events for the next like 30 seconds that you're like, oh, that just happened. And it's things like that that did give me a vivid sense of entertainment while I was watching this movie. And surprisingly, considering how short this movie is, it's kind of a shock to see how much character work and how well it was done in this small amount of time that it had. And because the movie's so short, it also was very well paced. At no point in the movie was I bored or did I want to move on to the next scene, so that's always a good sign. And I also thought the music was really, really solid. It did stick out maybe one or two times, but other than that, I was pretty happy with it. And all in all, it's a really pretty well-directed movie, just in general terms. Like, I was very, very viscerally into this film and the mood that it was trying to give to you. But then that makes it even more frustrating because all those dumb little things that you notice in the movie, it's like, this movie was smart enough to overcome those things, but it just kind of didn't. So that kind of bummed me out, It's like if one character, any character, doesn't even have to be important, if they put their mask down, immediately you're like, oh wow, gee, I wonder what's gonna happen to that character. And if I remember correctly, I think this only happened once, but there's a moment where physics didn't really make any sense. Because one character pushes another one, and then what happens afterwards is blatantly not physically possible, so I was just kind of like, all right. And that kind of sucks because at the end of the day, there's a lot of brilliant shit that does happen in the movie. And yet again, another thing that I really liked is I really liked how the movie began in the first few minutes and how the movie ended in the last like 15 to 20 minutes. So the movie had some pretty definitively good bookends in my opinion, but it just had, there's a few things in the middle there that just didn't quite, yeah, just didn't quite move the needle for me. But at the end of the day, if you're into horror movies in general, this movie's probably gonna float your boat, and if you're not into horror movies, the movie is a little bit gross, so maybe it's not your thing. But there is a lot of well-crafted things about this movie so that I can say it was a decent time, albeit I'm not sure if I'd want to watch it again. But all other things being equal, I would have to say, if I were to give this movie a score out of 10, I think I'd give it maybe a 7.6 maybe. There's a few strokes of genius. It's got some crafty things that are going on with it, and I would be curious to see what the director does next if they do anything else. But they just need to be a little bit smarter, and then maybe they can go the extra mile. But anyway, guys, those are my thoughts. What are your guys' thoughts? Have you seen this movie? Have you heard of it? Hop in the comments. Let me know what's up. Other than that, if you like this review, give me a like, subscribe, share, hit the bell, do all that other YouTube-y type of shit, and I will catch you guys next time.